Now, look, speaking of defence, The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald this morning are running an important and timely discussion on the real prospects of war on our doorstep. Now, sure, China's not going to invade Australia anytime soon, but China doesn't actually need to invade us. If the United States is defeated and driven out of the Western Pacific, unless Australia were prepared to turn itself into an Antipodean Israel with conscription and even nuclear weapons, we would effectively become an economic colony of China, producing food and minerals for the motherland. Think back to the 14 demands published by the Chinese embassy just 2 years ago. We had to accept, they said, all Chinese investment, accept all Chinese students, make no criticisms of Chinese government policy, and break our defence alliance with the US. We're all aware, or should be, of the Beijing government's determination to take Taiwan by force if necessary, Taiwan in practical terms, an independent island democracy of 24 million people that at no other time in its history has ever been ruled by communist Beijing. We should all be aware too of Beijing's often declared aim to be the world's top power by mid-century. Now, why is that any business of ours? Well, if one island democracy of 24 million people can be gobbled up by a bully neighbour, why not another, given all the natural resources we have that China wants and our capacity to feed 1 billion people should it ever come to that? Then there's the disruption that any attack on Taiwan would bring, not just in spiking of oil and gas prices, as we've seen with the energy drought in Europe caused by the Ukraine war, but in the case of a Sino conflict, the complete cessation of shipping through the southeast China Seas and the East China Seas that carry something like 50% of the world's maritime trade. And in just the area of technology alone, the loss of 70% of the world's semiconductors, those little items are now in almost everything, well, they're made in Taiwan. If the US fails to defend Taiwan, the whole US alliance system will collapse. If the US does defend Taiwan, it's war between superpowers, the very thing that the Ukraine war so far has been managed carefully to avoid. If we should have learned one thing from Ukraine, it's that you come into any conflict with the arms you have now. Once the fighting starts, it's too late to ramp up arms manufacture, to acquire new weapons and train first-class soldiers. If there's one thing that Beijing would have learned itself from Ukraine, it's that the West's stocks of arms and ammunition have already run dangerously low to supply one conflict, let alone two. So this is a perilous time. Xi Jinping has reportedly told his generals to be ready to invade Taiwan within 5 years. One US admiral has said it could happen within a year. And this is what makes the imminent force posture review by the federal government so critical. It would be almost impossible for us to remain a US ally and stand aside from any democracy versus dictatorship fight. So we need to be as ready as we can be. And our government in Canberra needs to be upfront with Australians about how serious these considerations are, so that we all understand what's in contemplation here and in Beijing. And China needs to know in blunt terms that only autocrats understand that we're as ready as we can be, because it's only strength that deters aggression. And continued deterrence is what's needed if the unthinkable is to remain unlikely.